Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good, 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 good. Are we ready for
Good.
this?
Yeah, I'm ready. Are you ready? You can hear me okay?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
You're recording?
Yes. I want to actually look and verify on the. Oh, yep. It says recording to the cloud. Perfect. I just
Okay.
want to make sure once we're in here, because we wouldn't want to do the whole interview and then.
I have been there, believe me. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Everybody's been there, so don't you don't want to do it, but don't feel bad like you're the only person that's ever happened to. So
Right. Right. That's good. Okay. Well, I'm ready to begin if you are.
okay, do we need to have some sort of disclaimer about signing or
Yes, there is. I was emailed like a sheet to email to you, and it's a fillable form, so you can electronically sign it.
okay, all right, that's great.
And I can just send that to you when we're finished.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. All right, so then we just begin.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Emma Donnelly with the University of Florida Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and I'm here with Dr. Steven Noll on August 17th, 2020. Thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Could you please describe your role at UF?
I am a master lecturer in the Department of History at the University of Florida, and my job is mostly teaching.
When did you start working at UF?
I started working full-time at UF in 2004, but I started teaching at UF in 1993.
Okay, great. Thank you. How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected your role at UF so far, and how do you anticipate it will affect your role in the upcoming semester?
It has changed my role dramatically from face-to-face teaching to online instruction. Last semester, middle of the semester, March 13th, of course, Friday the 13th, that was the last day of face-to-face classes. And after that, we went to online instruction. And this semester, I am teaching a full load, which for me is 3 classes totally online.
What do you think of online learning in general and for undergraduates in particular?
I think that it's not as effective as face-to-face. That said, in the previous years before the pandemic, I had the university implemented this program called UFO, which of course is a great acronym, University of Florida Online, in which students would take all online classes. And mostly this was for people who could not come to UF and move to campus to take classes, mostly for people who were working with full-time jobs. And as University of Florida attempted to implement this, the assumption was we would have to, as a department, get on this bus, as it were, and get on the train or whatever form of transportation you want to use as a metaphor, get on the online train. And so maybe 2013 or 14, I put together a complete lecture module for AMH 2020, which is the second half of the U.S. survey, and have been teaching that kind of on and off ever since. Right now, the crazy thing is it's being used, but I'm not teaching it. Other people, particularly graduate students, are teaching it, but it's my lectures. So people see me, it's my, I put the course together, they just are the implementers. So I had some experience with online teaching non-synchronously, and that's the course that I used last semester when I was teaching AMH 2020 face-to-face, and we migrated to online. I just used those lectures. For my classes that were completely face-to-face, that I didn't have anything, we went to synchronous Zoom classes, which meant just what we're doing now. I would be talking and students would be listening and interacting, using chat, using their responses. So,
are there any sorts of strategies that you feel like, or in your experience with online teaching, you feel like work better than others? How did you feel it went this past semester when it was transitioned to online?
I thought it went really well. I was pleasantly surprised. My students, not much complaining. I think, the biggest problem is technology. Students at times could not access their computer. Students at times accessed and the power went out. I think that's the biggest problem. One remarkably interesting thing was I would record my lectures, and I had a student who, foreign students who said, I miss face-to-face, I really liked it, and everything, but when it's recorded, I can see it and then I can watch it again if I missed it, so they can kind of back up as opposed to, trying to go through notes. Because if you missed it with notes, it's going to be real hard for you to see what the heck you were talking about, what I was talking about. So there's been some really positive things. I think I changed a lot of my exam strategies to like projects, and the blog posting that I had for my Quest class, which is the general education introductory classes, were fantastic. I mean, I've shown them to everybody, all these people in various departments and administrative positions throughout the university, and they were blown away at how good they were. So I think at some level that's really been a positive thing. And I think at some level I may, when going back to face-to-face, kind of move away from exams and move towards that stuff. So, and also I think that would even be better, because then they can use resources on the university campus as opposed to just being able to use or forced to use resources that are only on the web. The other thing is, I think that this has forced them to critically examine web resources as opposed to previously, it's on the web, I can just use it. Now it's, okay, now I've got to be able to realize whether this stuff is actually viable, valuable, helpful, not fake news type stuff.
Has your research or your students' or the research of the students you mentor been affected by the pandemic?
I think it's been significantly affected. Students who are doing honors theses for me this coming 2020-2021 school year, we're going to do research over the summer through the Cambridge program in London, and through going to Washington, D.C. to do stuff, and maybe going to Tallahassee to do research there. All that has had to be put on the back burner, and so they're having to rethink how they're going to do their projects. For many things at the university, particularly because I teach Florida history, many of the Florida history topics, the people in the library have been unbelievably helpful in helping students access material that is now unavailable. So that's been helpful. But yeah, I mean, I think students have really had a hard time doing that. Grad students as well, trying to figure out how to get this stuff done, or where to go.
Have you seen students shift their research focus to something perhaps more local?
Not necessarily more local, but more doable with online sources. Yeah, I've got a student who was doing something on jazz and U.S. foreign policy, and she still wants to do something with music, but she's had to change that because she couldn't get to the documents and the archives and the online audio source. Going to an archive and listening to sources. So.
I know that one of your focuses is Florida history, especially Florida environmental history. So has the pandemic had any sorts of impacts on the Florida environment, or vice versa, that you've observed or read about?
Well, I think that there's both positives and negatives. I think the lack of people out and about has allowed flora and fauna to flourish. Sea turtle populations are up significantly because nests are not being taken advantage of by people in walking on the beaches. Opportunities for animals have increased. On the other hand, I think, and also automobile traffic is down significantly. So animal, particularly panther kills are down because there's not as many cars on the road. And that's a big help. And manatee deaths are down as far as because boating has been down. But on the other hand, we also have significant increases in electricity usage because people are at home and cranking up the AC. So that's a problem. So there's both positives and negatives, I think. But I think on the whole, bizarrely, it's probably been a positive. I think people say, oh, it's going to change global warming. Well, for 5 months worth of a small downturn, I don't think that's going to make that much of a difference. But certainly, when you look at satellite data, particularly for smog and air pollution, it's down significantly, which is very interesting.
Have you, what's the way that you've heard about these sorts of changes? Through articles, reading newspaper articles?
Yeah, newspapers and on the web. And, people also send me stuff. Jack Davis, fellow professor in the history department, who's an environmental historian, he's sending me stuff, and we send stuff back and forth. Gary Marmino, who is professor emeritus at USF St. Pete, he'll send me stuff and I'll send stuff. So it's kind of this back and forth kind of collaboration, looking at how this stuff works and what the effect of it is. And I think, at this point, we're in the middle of it, so we really don't know. It's like, oh yeah, science. Well, the data will only be shown 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, 10 years out. So right now we're in the middle. We can only speculate.
As a scholar of disability history, have you learned of any ways in which people with disabilities have been especially impacted by the pandemic?
I think it's really problematical in a lot of ways. I think, the ability to use public transportation has significantly been impacted. Many people with physical disabilities don't drive. They're dependent on public transportation, and you don't want to take buses. You don't want to. So that's a real problem. Another problem certainly is if everybody's masked up, very hard for people who read lips to be able to look at people, and even if they are signing, much of sign language is looking at facial features, and you can't do that. So there's masks that have been made with plastic cutouts so that people can actually read lips. But that's, what percent? Maybe 0.2% of masks are made like that. So of course, the interesting thing is, many people who don't want to wear masks use the disability crutch, and say, "Oh, I've got a disability. I don't need to wear a mask." There was something on the news the other day that people at some business were handed cards, with misspellings and everything else. I don't need to wear a mask because I'm disabled, and it's just a scam. So I think that once again, people with disabilities are being hurt, and certainly. Educationally, I think that students with disabilities are probably hurt the most because they need face-to-face more than anybody. Their ability to use online instruction is really problematical, and it's really tough to see how people who are significantly impaired, either mentally or particularly mentally, can benefit from online instruction. So I think that's really hard, and so it makes it difficult, and it makes it difficult for parents because they've got to take care of those individuals as well. So, could you please describe a brief history of your work at Sidney Lanier? Well, I started teaching there a long time ago, 1976, and when I was hired there, I was teaching high school level students that at that point were labeled trainally mentally handicapped, people whose IQs were in the 30s to 60s. And at that point, we were working on lots of, I was doing academic skills, and then I was doing vocational skills. So like for math, we would do time and money. For reading, we'd work on signs in the community, basic reading skills. For vocational, we'd try to get them to learn how to not just do a job, but to, get there and stay on task. Don't just walk away when you're done, tell somebody. And we had things like we had a ceramics workshop, we had a woodworking workshop, we were doing all sorts of really neat things. And then I migrated to teaching. There was some really high functioning for that school, which is a specialized school for public school for students with disabilities in Alachua County. For a while I taught for that school really high functioning students, and we were doing higher level math, which is, maybe even multiplication and reading, maybe second or third grade. These are 16 and 17-year-olds. And then when I finally, from 1990 to 2004, which are the last 14 years, I was running an adaptive technology lab in which we were utilizing all sorts of adaptive technology, which is just kind of a hoot because all my students think my ability to work with technology is like zero or less than zero. But, I was doing all these pretty amazing stuff with getting kids who couldn't talk to communicate using adaptive devices, kids who couldn't use the computer because their hands couldn't work to use the keyboard to type using switches, kids who couldn't make music were making music using their wheelchairs to roll over mats that made music. So it was really interesting stuff. And I got a lot of national attention, and with that, I got a Krista McAuliffe Fellowship from the U.S. Department of Education to take what I was doing in the lab and bring it to people. So for a semester, I was out of the classroom and out and about throughout Alachua County and other places too. Every Friday, I'd go out in the woods. I mean, the real woods, God knows where, in Levy County, to this trailer of this severely impaired student and her family, and we set up a computer in the house and trained the parents to how to work with the kids. So it was really interesting stuff. So among the most gratifying stuff that I did. And then last year I was there, I ended up teaching students that were labeled profoundly mentally handicapped, which are kids with IQs in the teens, all of whom were nonverbal, all of whom were non-ambulatory, almost all of whom were non-toilet trained. And that was, we used a lot of adaptive technology in there, getting kids to make choices instead of just, instead of just putting a toy in front of them and say, play, giving them two toys. And then they would have to hit a button and say, I want the clown, and they play with the clown. So things like that. And, really different stuff than certainly than what I'm doing at UF. But I think the key is the fact that I was doing that allows me to understand that, in order to teach, you have to reach students at wherever they are. So that's the key to teaching either at college or anywhere. So, and in addition, all those years from 78 even to after I was at UF, I was coaching basketball at Rainier. So we had this big program that's really ongoing, and I think it's been a great success. I mean, I see kids who are now 50 years old as coach. It's just kind of amazing stuff. So it's been really helpful, and when I started back at UF, we really emphasized having UF students volunteer for basketball. So it's really been a great help to them as well as to the Sydney students. And I've had kids there, UF students, and then they go to law school and they specialize in disability law because of their experiences at Sydney. So it's been a really wonderful experience there. In the past 4 years, the higher level Sydney basketball players actually played in the regular Alachua County Middle School League. So they played against teams from Howard Bishop and Lincoln and Westwood and Oakview, and just like they were regular, which they are regular kids. So it's kind of a wonderful experience. So crazy, but interesting.
Have you been able to have UF students volunteer in other ways or mostly just with basketball?
Some of them volunteered in classroom situations there. I've had UF students volunteer at places like the Matheson Center, which is the museum in town, working on archival material. So I've had people work summers at museums around the state. So trying to get them to see that the history degree is not just something that they can utilize to either teach school or go to grad school or go to law school, but they can do other things as well.
How has the pandemic affected your role at Sidney Lanier?
It shut it down. The last practice we had was March 11th, because we always practice on Wednesday afternoons because that's their short day. And it's great because I know that and I don't schedule UF classes during that time. And so that's been really nice. So that was the last day of practice, and we socially distance. And, at the end of practice, everybody gets in the middle and puts their hands together and, 1, 2, 3, go Unicorns. And all the kids really just said, all right, we're not going to touch. And they were fantastic. And I think that they are much more aware of what's going on than the UF students, which is remarkable. So, but this year, school hasn't started yet. School will start for public school students on the 31st, and we're just not going to have basketball. It's impossible to do that for a variety of reasons. So we'll wait to see what happens.
Do you know if Sidney Lanier will still be open?
As far as I know, public schools in Alachua County students have choice, right? They've got online instruction, full-time, online instruction, part-time, or face-to-face. And I know people are sending their kids back, and I know teachers who are going there. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Should be crazy, but and again, of all the people who need benefit from online and face-to-face instruction, it's those students there.
How has your daily life been impacted by the pandemic?
Well, my daily life is constrained by the walls of my house. I think, we haven't been doing much. I get out a lot to walk and ride my bike, but mostly, through my neighborhood. Publix, just went to Publix today. That's a whole different phenomenon. Get up at 6:15, get the list ready, and be at Publix at 7 o'clock with my mask and just load up for 2 weeks, and and try not to shoot people who are not masked up. So although we won't say shoot people, but people. So and haven't been doing much, going for walks, but you go for walks out, and people don't get over, and they walk near you. They're 6 abreast, and they're not wearing masks. It's it's not frightening, but it's a little disconcerting. I haven't been to a restaurant. Don't do takeout. People come to our house and they sit on our porch, and we sit in our house and open the doors in the porch, and they sit socially distanced away. So we've done that. We've visited our kids up in Georgia, and that's been wonderful. But we visited our daughter who lives in Americus, and she's got a 2-month-old, and our son and daughter-in-law were supposed to come down from Atlanta with their 2-year-old, but they said, we just don't feel comfortable for both protecting the 2-month-old, protecting the 2-year-old, protecting everybody, but protecting the old people too. So, we didn't get to see the kids together, but we did go for a week to Atlanta to see the 2-year-old, and a lot of Zoom sessions, a lot of with friends, and interesting, people that I talk to once in a while. We've been Zooming every week, so that's kind of nice. But you get zoomed out for sure. So we'll see what happens come fall. And, you know, with friends, we were doing it every week. And we said, you know, every week, geez, that's kind of crazy. But you know, it was interesting. I Zoom with the people from Linear, who we would go out usually maybe once a month, you know, to dinner. And we've been Zooming every week. And, you know, usually it's time is set for an hour, but usually goes over, and it's, you know, because things get rolling and it's good and it's fun. It's not like, oh, geez, you know, so that's been nice, but it's been crazy. You know, it's been crazy. A lot of binge TV watching. So, you know, a lot of crossword and jigsaw puzzling, you know, so that's kind of it, you know, trying to not able to go to physical therapy, you know, so my knees was trying to do what they did for me when I was there. So that's kind of not great, but seems to be okay. So thinking about going to North Carolina in October. My son and daughter-in-law and the 2-year-old went there. Western North Carolina, very safe. Just to a house to, you know, hang out. And we're thinking about going there in October with them. So we'll see how that works out.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to share that we haven't discussed today?
I think that when we look back on this time, we'll realize that a pandemic is not just a naturally occurring phenomenon caused by a virus. It's something that's caused by human failure. And, you know, I think the situation that we're in is certainly the fault of the virus, but it's certainly also the fault of government officials who have been unbelievably non-appropriate, non-acceptable in what they're doing, both at the state and local level, state and national level. And I think that one reason why Alachua County is doing so well is because local officials have stepped up and mandated things that are scientifically acceptable, and you know, and they've taken some grief from non-mask wearers, from Trump supporters, and they've been willing to accept that because that's the right thing to do. But I think that when you look at, you know, the rest of the world and why their numbers are bad but not like ours, you recognize that this is something that could have been bad but not devastating. And, you know, they talk about we want football, we want school. Well, if you had done the right thing in March, April, May, June, July, we could have it, and we could have it safely. I mean, it still would be somewhat problematical, but it would be a lot safer than it is now. And, you know, the reason that school is so problematic, the reason that, you know, sports are so problematic is because of the failure at the highest levels of government, at state and local levels, and state and national levels. And I just hope that people recognize that. And when it comes time to vote on these people, get them the hell out.
Well, thank you very much for talking with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been good. If you need anything more, let me know. Hopefully this is kind of a test run for how the Zooming will work starting in 2 weeks. So, because it's 2 weeks from today. So should be an interesting. And you'll be on here 2 weeks from today in some class yourself, right?
Right. Yes.
I know. All right. Well, thank you. If you need anything, let me know. Keep in touch and be safe. Mask up.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.